In this video, I will cover everything you need to know to become a competent PvPer in V-Rising. Just quickly before the video starts, I have a free copy of V-Rising to give away. I partner with Fanatical, which is a site that sells games for cheaper than the standard price. Right now you can get V-Rising on their site for 19 Australian dollars, which is about $12 USD. So if you're looking to pick up a copy of V-Rising for cheap, I'll leave a link in the top of the description and it will help support my channel if you do. Thank you. As for the free copy I'm giving away, if you need a copy for you or a friend, just leave a comment below and I'll randomly pick one of you within the next few days. Thanks heaps guys, now let's get into the video. Now firstly, this is not a build guide. I'm going to go over weapons first and then I'll very briefly touch on spells, bloods, passives and coatings before I get into how to actually fight. Starting with weapon swapping. Weapon swapping is a major part of V-Rising PvP, and having the ability to switch between weapons mid-fight to deal with different situations is a must-know skill. You can have 8 weapons equipped at once, and these can really be whatever you like. Almost every player has a different choice for their 8 weapons, but there are a few you'll see more often than others. For me, I use the Spear, Slashes, Sword, Greatsword, Twin Blade, Reaper, Crossbow, and Pistols. Now, it is a good idea to have these slots bound to keys that are comfortable and make it easy for you to quickly swap in the midst of intense fights. For me, I use 1, 2, 3, 4, N, X, C, and mouse 4. Now, each of these weapons serves a different purpose for me in a fight, and I'll go into much more detail about this in the next section of the video. For spells, a good rule of thumb is 1 defensive and 1 offensive spell. Experiment and use whatever you like. For blood, you can combine them. Brute is incredibly overpowered at the moment since the 1.1 update, but I generally use the Warrior Rogue combo. Same thing here, just experiment, find what you like, find what works for you. For weapon coatings, the blood coating is horrible, but the rest are fine. And for passives, Dark Enchantment and Bastion are particularly strong as they both give damage reduction, but again, choose whatever you like. Now with the 1.1 update, they added caps to stats, and you can see these by going into Inventory and clicking on the Attributes tab. There is only one stat I care about having it cap at any time, and that is movement speed. Okay, now all that boring shit is out of the way, let's get into how to actually fight. In this section of the video, I'm going to be going into detail about what you should be doing in an actual fight, from basic fundamentals through weapon swapping and combos. Starting with by far the most important fundamental to have in V-Rising PvP, and that is using your Veil cooldown correctly. Bad Veil cooldown usage is one of the most common mistakes I see new players make. When you use your dash or Veil, your next primary attack does extra damage, applies the effect of whatever spell school it's in, and most importantly heals you for a minimum of 5% of your max HP. Fights in V-Rising can go on for quite some time, and consistently hitting these Veil attacks will often be the difference between winning and losing. In longer fights, you could potentially hit say 10 of these Veil attacks, which would heal you for roughly 500 to 600 HP. But with certain builds, this number could be more like 1500 to 2000 HP. Now the Spear primary attack being so fast and having really good range for a melee is a great option for consistently landing these Veil attacks, as well as the pistols as you can poke at further range with them. But note, missing the next attack after the Veil will remove the effect and you will not get the heal after that. So it's important you are patient and calculated when using your dash and should mostly be used aggressively. And of course, in an open world fight, if you can't hit your opponent for whatever reason, you should be looking to dash and hit mobs to get the heal. You need to be hitting as many of these as I said. It is by far the most important fundamental to have down in V-Rising PvP and should be your primary focus to learn if you're a new player. Now I'll showcase some staple and commonly used weapon combos. I'm going to go over these very quickly, and if any pique your interest, you can go back and watch them again. Quick note, when I say true combo, it means that after the first hit connects, your enemy cannot avoid the combo provided you've done the inputs correctly. Slasher E into Spear Q, super easy and true combo. Greatsword Q into Crossbow E, true combo. And the other way around, Crossbow E into Greatsword Q, not a true combo, but is good in certain situations. Greatsword Q Spear Auto, true combo and a great option if your E is on cooldown. Twin Blade E into Reaper Q, true combo unless you're stacked on your opponent when you first hit the Twin Blade E. Axe E into Greatsword Q, true combo, but is not true if you're using the artifact axes as they no longer incap after the 1.1 update. Reaper Q, Crossbow E, Pistol Autos. None of this combo is true, but due to the fading snare on both the Reaper Q and the crossbow E, if you know your opponent doesn't have their counter or dash up, they really can't avoid the damage. Longbow Q into crossbow E, not a true combo, but is great for poking at range, especially when kiting in 1vx open world fights. And lastly, the whip E into literally anything. The whip E entangles them for a full 2 seconds and can basically be followed up with whatever you want. There are more combos than this, and especially with the recent addition of the weapon skill resets in the last update, you can get very creative with your combos. But the ones I mentioned here are mostly the staple combos and the ones that you'll generally see players using in PvP. Now I'm going to go over some common situations and positions that will occur in fights and how to potentially get the upper hand in each one. I'll show some examples from real fights, and at the end of this section I'll show some full fights of my own, both 1v1 and 1v2, and try to explain my thought process and how I use these various skills to win fights. Firstly, we're going to talk about utilizing iframes on your weapon skills. Iframes are invulnerability frames, and this is a period of time where you cannot receive any damage or CCs whatsoever. They're extremely useful in fights to avoid big damage or stuns that can lead into big damage. Firstly, if you are caught in a merciless charge, it will stun you and it will lead to basically whatever combo your opponent wants. In open world team fights against a coordinated team, this can often result in you losing over half your HP in one go. But thankfully, there is a brief time between when the charge actually ends and when the stun occurs. And during this time, you can use iframes to dodge out and avoid the stun and avoid all that damage. There are many ways to dodge out of this, but the most common and effective is probably the pistol E. If you're hit by the merciless charge, you can simply pull out your pistols, hold down E, and at the end of the charge you will roll out, avoid the stun, and potentially be able to confirm the explosive shot onto your enemy. Make sure you roll behind them here so you don't end up eating, say, a spear Q if you end up in front of them. You can also dodge out with your Veil Dash, Dagger Q, and you can even use the Ice Block ultimate to avoid the stun and tank the damage. Some other common good uses of these iframes are to avoid the damage from Heart Strike and Explosive Shot. These can be avoided with Dagger Q, Pistol E, Slasher Q, Greatsword E, your Veil Dash, and the Claws E. But Slasher Q is the longest and most generous of all these iframes and can be used to avoid a lot of damage and CCs. If you find yourself in a bad spot with no cooldowns other than your Q, you can pull out your slashes and pretty much dodge whatever incoming damage or CCs and avoid a bad situation. Another common situation that can happen in fights is you use your counter and your opponent doesn't hit it. They just stand in front of you, waiting to punish you when it ends. In this spot, if your enemy is too close to you, you can use your Reaper Q to knock them away and interrupt whatever they're trying to do. But if they're further away and out of your Reaper's range, maybe they're looking for a Greatsword Q to punish, then you could say swap to your pistols and dodge roll to the side or back to get out of range or avoid the damage. Now there are a lot of different things that can happen in this situation. Maybe both your weapon skills are on cooldown, so you'd have to use your Veil Dash to get out of the pressure. It doesn't really matter how you respond per se, as long as you respond in some way. I see a lot of new players have this happen to them. They counter, the opponent waits to punish, and they just sit there and let them do it. At the very least, if you have no cooldowns, you should just throw some autos at them before they punish you to at least trade some damage back to them. Now, if your opponent is using their sword Q to hit you through your counter, you can again swap to your Reaper and hit Q to knock them back and interrupt. But note here, experienced PvPers will anticipate this move, and it is very common that they will cancel their sword Q early into their own counter to catch your Reaper Q. Again, there are a lot of different things you can do here. You could sword Q to catch them countering, you could pistol E out of the sword Q damage, or you could even Slasher Q them, and if they counter then you're in an iframe anyway. As long as you respond in some way. I see a lot of new players in this spot just sit there and eat the damage. High level V-Rising PvP is often about reacting and adapting quickly to what your opponent is doing. A lot of players will show similar patterns in their gameplay, and if you're able to quickly adapt to their playstyle, you should find yourself winning a lot more fights than you're losing. And now I'll showcase myself utilizing these skills in both a 1v1 and a 1v2. I'll slow down these first couple of fights and explain my thought process, and then I'm just going to show some highlights with some music behind it at the end. Now this first fight here is actually against a very good PvPer. Now this is on the 1.0 update when everyone had jumped on V-Arena to kind of warm up before the update. The first part of the fight there is distance, so we're both poking to deal damage or get a reaction out of the other player. He lands a pistol auto, I go for a bow auto, he uses the veil to dodge it and then baits me into countering, but does not swing because he expected my counter. Now I know this guy's a good player and he's never hitting this counter, so I cancel my counter into a sword Q to hopefully catch him trying to counter, which I do, and as I said before, he is going to react and use his Reaper Q to knock me away. I anticipate this and Pistol E dodge out of the way early. Now he reacts and uses a Pistol E of his own to try and dodge the second shot. I do flick it over and land it, which does very good damage. Now he uses his Merciless Charge and I use my Veil cooldown to dodge and I tap him with the spear as I'm going past for the heal. Then I use a Merciless Charge of my own and I catch him at the end of his Veil, get some good damage. We both use Power Surge and trade a bunch of damage. I land the Spear Q, he counters the Cross EE. I hit my Veil auto for the heal and then dash out of the Reaper Q and the pistol autos finish him off. And this clip here is a 1v2 in the arena. My teammate dies right here and I'm left in the 1v2. In this situation, I'm using my pistols and just ranged weapons in general a lot, you'll notice, and also my E on my pistol a lot, so I can get a bit more maneuverability and do damage at range. Because of course I do not want to be in their face just autoing them. I will lose that every day of the week. Also, very much focused on hitting as many Veil autos as I possibly can. I think in this I hit, if I didn't hit as many Veil autos as I do in this, I definitely wouldn't have won, so because it's very close at the end. I do eat a lot of damage there though. Get the free cast on the counter, which is very fortunate. And using the Q on the slashes there to avoid some more damage and hopefully put out some of my own. Thankfully, one of them hits my counter there because that could have been really bad. Using the bow Q to knock them away, get the Veil heal again. And now here I'm kind of getting pressured into a corner, so I try to get out, focus on the one target. I need to finish one of them off here. Tablecloth is lower, but I am very low here. They're starting to use their ranged weapons more here and poking at me from a distance. Fortunately, I don't get the Veil auto here, and I honestly thought I was dead here for sure. Couple shots from them miss. I do get the counter into a couple of spear autos and now I am 31 HP. I am one shot. I'm waiting for my cooldowns here and I just need to hit him once and he's dead, and I get him with a Veil pistol auto for the win. Now, there is definitely more that I could talk about in this video, but I think I've covered the most important things to help you win more fights in V-Rising. V-Rising is a hard game. It takes a lot of time to master all these fundamentals I've spoken about. But the journey is honestly the most enjoyable part. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope you enjoy this short PvP montage that I have for you. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
That's the fucking